Nintendo's new console launch is just a few days away from now, and we have just found out a new information about Nintendo's Switch GPU boost mode and 25 GB per second of Ddr4 memory bandwidth. Stay tuned for more. Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Mats and you're watching the Mats Gaming News channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook, so check the links in the description of this video below. And also don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell button to stay up to date with the latest news. Nintendo Switch is just a few days away from release, and the amount of new information we are getting now closer to the launch is significantly bigger than a few weeks ago. There are some new information about system capabilities and performance, even though Nintendo have not revealed official specification of the console, and I don't think they will ever do that because they never do that. That's just Nintendo. We have found this out from leaks coming from legitimate sources few weeks ago already, and this information is being confirmed by even more leaks from both developers and system teardowns. The previous info is not only being confirmed, but even more is being added on top of that. So let's just dive into it. One of such new info is the fact that Nintendo Switch will come with some sort of a performance boost for the GPU in undocked mode. One of the older leaks from Foxconn workers suggests that the NVIDIA Tegra X1 processor was tested for several days straight with CPU clocks operating at 1.78 GHz and GPU being pushed to 921 MHz. But the default clock speeds for the machine have been set at 1 GHz for CPU in both dock and undocked mode, and for the GPU 307 MHz in undocked mode and just slightly above 700 MHz in the docked mode when connected to the TV. This may seem as not much, as it offers around 0.7 teraflops of raw performance in docked mode and only half of this in undocked mode. It's significantly less than 1.3 teraflops of Xbox One and 1.8 teraflops of PlayStation 4 raw performance. But there is a bit of good news coming out from developers' documents, as apparently Nintendo is still optimizing the system and just added a sort of a boost mode for the GPU in handheld mode. This means that developers will be able to run GPU at clock speeds of 384 MHz, which is roughly around 20% boost in performance. This will only affect GPU and only in undocked mode. GPU clocks will not change, at least not for now, when it's in the docking station and connected to TV. Also, it does not increase the CPU clock speeds, so the CPU will still operate as it always do. So, and on top of that, there's actually two other things that we've learned, and these seems to be a bit sort of worrying, at least for me. The CPU speed is pretty low as it operates at roughly around 1 GHz in both dock and undocked mode. And the CPU is very important if you want to have a smooth frame rate. CPU actually tells the GPU what to do, what sort of operations, and even though that GPU really does the heavy lifting, the CPU as a brain of the system tells GPU what to do, what sort of geometry and that kind of stuff it should display. It's actually offering those draw calls, right, as they call it. So it's sort of like a list of things that GPU needs to do. And on top of that, CPU is also important for any AI calculations or artificial intelligence, physics, and a couple of other things. So CPU does a lot of things to do. So, you know, the faster CPU, the better performance, better obviously frame rate. Another thing is system's main memory that offers just over or around 25 gigabytes of memory bandwidth, which doesn't seem to be a lot. Xbox One, for example, offers 68 gigabytes per second, and that is being considered as slow. Even though Xbox One do offer additional GPU memory, which is obviously not much, but still it does increase performance. But that's not the case with Nintendo Switch. Another thing is that PlayStation 4 offers 176 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, which is a huge, you know, increase, a huge difference when you compare it to 25 gigabytes per second. It's like PlayStation 4 offers 8 times more memory bandwidth than Switch. I mean, 8 times. That's a huge difference. I mean, it seems like both CPU and slow memory may be a significant bottleneck in achieving 1080p resolutions even in dock mode. In handheld mode, that may not be going to be a huge issue, as games will operate at 720p resolution. So, you know, Nintendo Switch should cope with that no problem. We may actually see a lot of more graphically demanding games, basically 900p on the Switch in dock mode as well. You never know. And this specification and selection of components do suggest that Nintendo is more concerned about battery life than the performance when playing on TV. Even the chips that they do have in Switch can operate at much higher clocks, but this would probably kills console's battery. I mean, right now the battery life is around 3 to 6 hours depending on the game. So apparently running Zelda in normal mode, in a handheld mode, allows you to play the game for like 3 hours before the battery goes dead, right? So if they were to raise the clock speeds, this would actually shorten the battery life even more. So obviously they are fully aware of it. But what about docked mode? It's drawing energy from the wall socket, so battery life should not be an issue there. Surely the console could operate at now higher frequencies, not even a 1.78 gigahertz, but even 1.5 or something. And the 928 megahertz for GPU, which would obviously offer much smoother experience and probably better graphics as well. I'm not an engineer, but software or hardware engineer, but this may suggest that running at such frequencies, games engine could actually have some issues, as they may not scale well. Because we need to remember that Nintendo Switch is having this switch thing where you can actually play and go and stuff, and you don't really have to power off the console, and the game engines need to scale between the low power, low performance handheld mode and less efficient but more powerful docked mode, and it's all done in a fly. So it may be some sort of game engine scaling issue with different CPU clocks, right? But I'm just speculating right now, to be honest with you. So consider this with a grain of salt. But if we move away from the specs a little bit and look at the games, that we can actually clearly see that Switch is capable of producing some impressive visuals, even though devs will have to compromise on some features for sure. I mean, one of such compromises may be actually frame rate and resolution. I can guarantee you that. Especially if any of the third-party developers will want to actually port some of their games to Switch, they will actually probably run the game at 30 frames per second and at 720p, no matter whether it's in docked mode or not. But we'll see how that goes, right? But there will have to be some compromises. But at the end of the day, as long as the games deliver a great gaming experience, may not really make people to care about the specs that much. This is a handheld experience focused machine at the end of the day that only offers a home console experience on top of that. I mean, this is at least the way I perceive this console anyway. I don't see this console competing with PlayStation 4, Xbox, or not to mention PlayStation 4 Pro or even Scorpio, but you know, that's just me. I even feel like they should offer a separate model that would only be a handheld without the docking station and other stuff. That basically inflates the price. And I would not be really surprised if they did that at some point in the future. Nintendo is pretty well known for many hardware models and variations and colors and added features of pretty same hardware, right? Look at Nintendo DS or Nintendo 3DS. I mean, there's so many models available right now that it's really difficult to account for. Honestly, there's just like dozens of the different models basically doing pretty much the same, playing the same games. But I guess this is good for consumers as they get extra features if they really want them, and if they don't, then obviously they can stick with their older hardware. And I think that wraps up this video really. So thank you very much for tuning in and obviously sharing all my videos with others. I really do appreciate that. Hopefully you did enjoy this video, and if you did, you know the drill. Let me know what you think about it. Comment in the comment section below, hit the like button, subscribe, and you take care. Bye.